All right. Welcome back to the Build to Grow podcast. I am your host, Tim Lyons, joined on the other side of the wood table by Randall S. Inkston. What's up, buddy?
Oh, S. That's a new one.
Samuel.
Like a Hunter S. Thompson?
Yes. Quick announcement. A couple days left, guys. If you haven't got your early bird tickets, the price goes up. Fair warning. There's no exceptions to the rule. There's a timer on the page, fitprogrowthsummit.com. Go check that out. That's our 4th annual Growth Summit. They get better and better. Stack lineup, everything from beyond memberships, the customer experience for the first 100 days, to coaching as far as your team building. It's lessons learned from the trenches. It's doing a whole presentation on all the red flags that I see in businesses on a weekly basis. Great speakers, branding, marketing, sales. It's all in this event, plus breakout sessions, networking, and a lot of fun.
Business focus, guys. If you want to make more money this year, next year, moving forward, just be there.
Yeah,
you're going to want to be there.
Unfortunately, there's no hands-on like kettlebell swing.
Yeah, you're not going to get sweady in the breakouts.
It's going to be business, guys, and really, it's by design that way. There's no point to talk about battle ropes at this event. It's about P&Ls and what's going to move the business forward. And if you're listening to this show, bottom line, you need to be at this event. Tickets are $297 today. They're going to go to $347 in April. So be aware. So fitprogrowthsummit.com, still some tickets left, and we're going to move on that price. So this episode, guys, we're talking about how being average sucks, right? And so this topic has been around, kind of swirling around at least this podcast studio for years, and it makes a lot of sense, and it comes up every so often.
Sure.
We'll hear somebody talking about it, but and we've talked a little bit about it on the show. But at the end of the day, if you're listening to this show, you're a gym owner. You are different. You're not like everybody else. You're not the average Joe. And while there are some people that are very content being the average Joe, you as a high performer are not happy with that. And so if you're not achieving, developing, creating, driving the needle forward, you're not happy, right, with that, or you shouldn't be happy with that.
You're probably not. And if you're, whether or not you realize it or not, I mean, it will affect you. Mm-hmm. We're so tied to results. We're so tied to the progression that when that's not happening, our worlds are in disarray. I mean, I'm literally depressed sometimes when we're in kind of growth mode, not growth mode, like we're in build mode, building mode, and we're not moving the needle and things like that. Like I get antsy, like I feel like we're not doing enough. And, so that's its own challenge to figure out is that battle. But to your point, we are rooted for more. Since I think probably our first episode, I've always mentioned, growth or decay. I don't believe in stagnation. I believe that we're working towards the progression of something, or things are progressing around you and you're
being left behind.
You're slipping and you don't even realize it sometimes. But to be a high performer, and in order to succeed and want to succeed, you have to be intentional. You have to be forward focused. You have to then, apply the action it takes to get those things. But how and where and what, well, really, is sometimes this whole thing to figure out.
It is tough to figure out, and the odds are against you.
Absolutely.
I mean, this whole world is designed for you to be average. From the schooling and the education world, they teach you to be an employee. From the fast food restaurants that are on every corner, they're egging you on to eat like shit, right? To your friends and family just not understanding why you're taking the big risks when they're happy as can be, being in the same company for 40 years, the gold watch.
Yeah.
That's the world around you. And so for you to be outside of that box, you're looked at differently, and you're just not normal. And it's okay to not be normal. In fact, I wouldn't want it any other way. I don't want to be in the box of the average. Mm-hmm. And, and you look around and you look at the high achievers in, your cronies and your peers, and to us, that is normal. But to everybody outside of that world, they look crooked at you. They just don't get it. And, even as entrepreneurial as my father was, he, really cautioned me to not open the business back in 2009. They were scared. They were scared for me.
That's what I'm sure what it was.
It wasn't, they didn't feel like I was going to succeed. They were just scared. And it really came from my mom. My mom literally rooted my dad out of being an entrepreneur and put him into an hourly job or whatever, salaried job. Because that's that comfort and that's
stability,
the world.
safety.
That's the world she came from.
Yeah.
Her dad, my grandfather, was a beat cop in Miami for 50 years.
Yeah.
And like that was his life, and that's how they grew up. And so you have to understand, like, it's not your parents or your friends or family that don't want to see you succeed. There is some of that. There's some resentment there.
Sure.
But it's that safety comfort zone, and they don't know the other side. There is another side, and you're living it. You're living it today. You took the risk. You signed that personal guarantee that says if you don't make your payments, they can go after your personal assets. It takes some big cojones to do that. It takes, and really that sometimes is the line in the sand. Some people won't cross that line, and that's it. And they're going to stay on the other side
of comfort.
Yeah,
that's putting your back against the wall. You know what I mean? Like that is exactly what it takes. And the journey of the entrepreneur is the stepping into that arena and saying, "Hey, I'm willing to take greater risk for a greater personal reward than you typically see in the other avenues." And it does come with its risks, but to us, it has massive reward.
Big reward.
And that's, that's an entirely different thing that, if you move to some of those traditional routes, you probably would never feel fulfilled in those arenas, those pillars.
Yeah. And it's funny. I was just talking to my dad last night about my daughter, and it's so wild. They're selling their house. They've lived in Arizona since the 70s. And they're selling their house overnight. They've got 2 offers. And I'm like, and they're moving to Florida. And we got to talking about, hey, Tim, you don't need the money. We know that you're going to be fine, and we're just going to go and not leave you anything. Basically, we're going to live life. And I'm very happy that they're doing it. And I said, Dad, don't worry about me. I don't need the money. He goes, what about your daughter? Does she need the money? I go, don't worry about her either. She is fine. She's going to make more than all of us combined. Yeah. She is an entrepreneur.
Oh yeah.
And I don't know. I support that as hard as I can, because when we were growing up, it wasn't, the norm. I think your dad was an entrepreneur as well.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like ingrained into the childhood. Finances were never talked about at the dinner table. It was about going, for me, my life was about going to high school, to college, and getting a scholarship, and then getting a job. That was it.
It's almost funny. I ended up, kind of being rooted this way, almost the opposite of like my father's dreams or wishes. He's always wanted me to pursue what I want to do and things like that. But because he was a general contractor, and he grew up obviously, physical labor, much of the way getting there and stuff like that, putting in the reps. And, it took his toll on his body.
Of course.
And so for years, he always just said, get into something that you're using your mind, save your body. Cause that's got a toll that it takes. And, so he never, he always catered me to go that way. But because of watching him work his ass off, feast or famine, risk, reward. My parents did a very good job at making sure that, us as kids never knew, the financials are like how dire certain things got. Because as an entrepreneur, sometimes it is, right? You do make decisions on paying your employees or bring that, extra check home for yourself or that type of thing. And, so they sheltered us from some of the lows, I think, pretty well. But at the end of the day, I gained appreciation for the fact of the ownership and taking responsibility and being able to call something your own and have pride in something that you create yourself and all of those things. And so, as I grew up, to me, it was almost always like in my own mind, I was always like, there's some path down that road. Of doing more, being more, risking more. I joke all the time. I'm intellectually unemployable. Well, I know I work with you, like technically as an employee, but it's just not the same dynamic as sitting in like a corporate desk. You know what I mean?
You think?
But the idea of average scares the hell out of me.
Yeah, but here's the thing. There's plenty of people that are happy as a clam, making their paycheck, and just going living life. And that's okay. And there should be, there's people, because there's plenty of people that need jobs, right?
Correct.
And we're the creators of jobs. And nothing to say that one person's better than the other. It's just a different mindset. And what you mentioned about there's pride in your work and your business, that also, as soon as you said that, I said that is actually a bad thing. And I'll explain why. When you fall in love with your product, when you fall in love with your business, you can't see the flaws. Like when you hire a business coach and they come in and they pick it apart and they show you what could be improved.
Sure.
That's a great thing. The ego, when it comes to especially gym owners are very alpha brain people.
Sure.
They're like the boss, they've been running the business, this is their baby. And you're potentially at risk for not seeing the flaws, and you could be doing so much better. Or you're not willing to change because it's my way and this is what we created. It's funny, it was never about pride for me. It was about what's gonna pay the bills.
Yeah.
And if there's a better way, I'm going to change it. And we changed it in our first year. That's unheard of.
I'll tell you exactly why. And this is what I would do if we came across like a gym owner that was that way. To me, that's emotional intelligence. It's the difference between understanding that business is personal, but it's not emotional, right? I can care about my business, but that doesn't mean that my identity is my business. And being able to separate, the results of the business and things like that from your happiness is where that emotional intelligence, comes into play. You have a very logically rooted base, right? You're not easily swayed by emotion. I know you have emotion. You care about certain things. You have things you like, and it will impact, but it doesn't cloud your judgment for making the business decisions that need to happen. That, I think, is that's an invaluable lesson that business owners should all understand and go through. I think that we've been kind of talking a little bit more, our coaching and things like that. Emotional intelligence is becoming more and more of a topic because, emotion does cloud judgment. And when you are tied to that, to your point, you make decisions that are probably not the best decision for the business.
Oh, yeah.
And you do it completely the opposite of what probably would be. But that's because that emotion clouds that. So to have that ability to have pride and ownership and accountability and happiness towards what you've created, but still create that. But it is just a business. It's a means to an end, right? It's adding value by adding value to the market, to your life by adding value to the marketplace. But it's not your identity. That's where people get tied to. So,
and it's hard to separate that especially for these people that started from nothing. And they've built this from scratch. I will argue, and I have a very big topic at the Grow Summit, nobody is self-made. I don't care what that word means, absolutely zero. There's nobody on this planet that's self-made.
No.
And I've got a whole discussion about that. But the point is that, yes, you feel like this is your thing. You tattoo it on your neck, right? Hell, I was driving around my truck with a damn logo across it, and it's the whole thing. That's okay, but yes, you can't let it cloud your judgment and not make the right decisions because the data tells you otherwise.
Correct. And that, exactly where it matters is when you're being told by math and logic and things like that, that this is the path, but you feel like you want to go a different direction. It's usually not the gut. It's usually clouded judgment through things like that. The gut, that's a different.
And so going back to being average, right? And that's kind of what the show's about. You're not average. If you're listening to this and you've signed your name, like you put the cojones on the line and you sign it, you're not average. And you need to be very aware of that because there's going to be people in your life that try to pull you back to average every day. Whatever you're doing, if it's your friends or if you're going out to eat, like I use this analogy all the time where you're going out to eat with your friends and you're ordering off the menu with salmon and broccoli and they're eating burgers and chicken wings and pizza and they're giving you a hard time. Just eat the pizza. It's that kind of stuff that happens all the time. And sometimes it's coming from your own spouse. And I'll explain.
Oh, all sorts of places.
Like, hey, you don't need to work that hard. Come home early. And yes, there is that work-life balance that I understand. But in business, if you're truly in business, there is no balance. Your life is the work. And if you enjoy what you do, then it doesn't matter. And you don't need work-life. To me, there is no work-life balance. I have a very difficult time going on vacation and unplugging. I can't do it. I just can't.
Sure.
Like, it's impossible. I always am checking in. I'm looking at an email or whatever. But when you have a family that supports it, then everything's fine. But when you don't, that's when you butt heads.
Yeah.
And that's where it can get into some scary times.
Sure.
Because there's been divorces, there's been, arguments and blowouts because they're not the same as you. And you have to also understand that. So as long as everybody's on the same page, you're fine. But you need to have that discussion, because there will come a time where you're being told you're working too much, or you're spending too much time at the gym, or you should be spending time with your family. And it's like, you shouldn't do anything that you don't think is right. Like, like you need to do the job. And what they don't understand is they love you and they want you to be a part of the family and everything, but they don't understand if you don't do those things, they're not going to have the life that they're used to. So it's a catch-22. The best thing in the world is to have a spouse and family that gets it. If they get it, then you're good, especially if you're working with your spouse.
Yeah. Oh, that's a big dynamic too. I mean, we work with a lot of husband-wife couples, and whether or not you're in the business together, owning a business as an individual, they both have massive impacts on relationships.
Yeah.
When things are good, finances, right? Like, just call it the finances.
That's the number one
reason for
second.
divorce.
That's the second.
Health? Is it health?
No, marriage. Marriage is the leading cause of divorce.
You know why divorce is so expensive?
Why?
Because it's worth it.
Oh, geez.
No, I'm just kidding.
No, the number one leading cause of a divorce is marriage.
It's marriage, yeah. It's actually 100% of divorces began with marriage.
That's correct. That's correct. But no, finances is number one.
Yeah. So, but that it says a lot, right? Like, that it's silly. Like, we let something like money affect our relationship that much, but especially when your actions, your everything that you do is now dependent upon that, or tied to that. You know what I mean? Like, you're not making pressure. Yeah, exactly. You're not making enough money. We're not making enough money. We got to go to work. Got to do it. Now it's putting that added stress and strain on the relationship. So there's a million different things about it. But at the end of the day, if you want to not be average, you have to do things that are not average. You have to do. I was talking with you a little bit before the show. Like, my coach, Ben, his whole thing is on being uncommon. His coaching program is Uncommon Leadership. And it's about, getting up and doing not the norm, doing more activity than what everybody else considers acceptable. If you want to get additional results, you got to do additional work. And it doesn't take much. It doesn't have to be grand things. I'm a big fan in just one little thing. Small compounded changes over time, like massive results.
For sure. Yeah.
But it takes action. It takes being intentional. Like, you can't just wake up and just say, hey, cool, let's see what today has for me if you want to be anything but average.
Right. And I think most people listening to this would be like, sometimes you want to hit that snooze button.
Sure.
Sometimes you don't want to go work out. Sometimes you want to just take a break. And look, I'm all for every so often, because you may kill yourself if that. Look, I'm not going to get into that. That's not. But you do need to break sometimes. But it's funny. I don't. Like, there was one time in my life that I needed a break. It was that one December that I took off the month. Yeah. And that was the only time that I can remember in my adult life that it was that heavy, right? But other than that, I'm good, right? I love it. I love what we do. And if you love what you do, then it's not work. It's really not. Would you hear that? Do what you love. You'll never work another day in your life. Sure, that's true. But the point is, listen, embrace being different, embrace not being average, and being aware of what's pulling you back to average, and cut it off. If it's people, if it's habits,
there you go.
If it's habits, cut them out. Like, look, your life's short. You only have so many innings to play, and so there's no point in kind of fostering those negative relationships in your life. Just cut it out. Like, I hate to do it. Like, sometimes I've done it with family. I've done it with family, and they don't understand it. But again, you can't expect them to. They're living in the average world, and you're outside the average box, right? So surround yourself with the like-minded, driven individuals, people that are on the same mission as you. That's why our Iron Circle is so important to all of us. And you know, you're listening right now, you're listening to this show, you're either in your car, like you could be doing something else. You could be listening to music,
sure,
which for
the majority of people probably are.
Yeah.
Right.
But you're listening to this show, and that tells you should be aware. Man, that's right. I am different. And be proud of it. Be proud of it and embrace it, and be happy that you're not the average Joe.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
So hopefully that makes you more aware. Really, it was just more of a like, hey, an awareness episode, and making you understand, like, look, this is okay. The life you lead's okay. It's all right to be different, and it's all right to say no to things. It's all right to work your ass off, and it's all right to not have work-life balance. It's okay. Do what's best for you, right?
Yeah.
And so hopefully that helps you guys. Maybe it'll motivate you a little bit this week. And hell, until next episode, guys, keep changing lives. We'll see you on the next show. Bye. All right, and thank you for listening to that episode of the Built to Grow podcast, where we help gym owners win. Now, do you want to connect with me and other gym owners online? All you need to do is join our private Facebook group, Business Talk with Fitness Professionals. Just head on over to Facebook and type in Business Talk with Fitness Professionals, and when you do, we're going to give you our 10 marketing strategies 7-figure gym owners use to win. I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Until then, keep building something great.